And we should be live. All right. Welcome everyone to breakfast or brunch, or if it's a dinner time for you, I'm thinking like banquet or buffet, brisket. I don't know.
Or beer. It works.
Breakfast or brunch, or if it's a dinner time shit. For you, I can hear myself in the background. Good. I'm muting that. That makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, good. So we are live. I just confirmed it. Yeah. Welcome everybody. We've got another, this is our third episode now of our weekly live stream where we get the team from Helios along with special guests. Today we've got Rieki from Hypha DHO, and I've been watching, we're going to get into it, but I've been recently watching some of your YouTube videos on the regenerative renaissance. You've got you're looking for 12 projects and there's it sounds like a really cool thing you're working on. So we'll get into that. But let's just do a circle of introductions for those who don't know everyone here. So we'll start, maybe Gav, you can go first, your top left. Quick intro for those who aren't familiar with everyone on the call here.
Sure. So I'm got the honor of working with Helios since inception in November, working on the incubator program, looking for profit-driven opportunities for investors to be involved in the Web3 space as it evolves. Very much an enthusiast of what Rieki is doing in terms of community and intentional communities. In the conversation, hopefully I'll be able to share some of my experiences in that area today. Over to Waxer.
Hello, I'm Waxer and I'm the communications manager for Helios. And if you have any questions today, just put them in the chat and we'll hopefully get to them and ask them to the group in Rieki. And I'll pass across to Joshua.
Hey, I'm Josh. I'm one of the few billionaires in the group today. I'm just kidding. Or am I? Yeah, I wear a lot of hats and I'm super obsessed with DAOs. I think it might be the year of the DAO or we're kind of entering that. And I'm excited, Rieki, that you're here because there's a lot of awesome questions and conversations that we can have about this whole. It's almost becoming like a fad in a sense, like NFTs, but in a different way. And there is overlap. And there's so many questions and so much interest growing about DAOs and what even is a DAO and that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to just kind of diving into the basics and kind of expanding from there. And of course, Hypha is doing a lot of amazing things that I hope more people will become aware of as a result of this.
All right, Robert, you want to go?
Sure. So I'm the freelancer in this group. I fill different spots in different places. My background's in payments, fraud, and identity. And so traditional finance, usually traditional finance, but I've made the jump to blockchain and cryptocurrencies over the last few months. I'm really interested in the DAO piece because I think it's a very misunderstood technology that really completes the picture of decentralized finance and decentralized organizations. It's the piece that's been missing for a long time. I'm really interested to see how the different proposals and different products, technologies really pan out, because this is really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to decentralization.
Awesome. I'll do mine and save the special guest for last. So I'm Chris Barnes, member of Helios, into Eden on EOS and all those things, love governance and loving this idea of DAOs and organizing people differently. Our, the current structure of governments and society is, we can mildly put it as flawed. There's some room for improvement, maybe. So, yeah, so
Wow, we just picked up someone's airplane going above the house there, I think.
Yeah, that's probably Rieki. Yeah, okay.
So that was me. I'm on my airplane.
Your airplane's like the size of a room. That is a fancy. You've got one of those big ones. Did it pass, Rieki?
So I get a constant daily reminder multiple times a day of why we need to do systems change. I'm right next to an Air Force base, and there's an F-35, the new fighter jets we wasted $1.5 trillion plus on. Anyway, the enormous amount of waste and air pollution and noise pollution. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? So anyway, it's a constant reminder of why all of this is important, and I'll just keep muting myself when it comes up.
Awesome. And what about, and maybe a bit about your background in terms of
So I mentioned terms like systems change, and I think a lot of us are getting it. The current systems that humanity is living in, they're centuries outdated, and they're killing our planet, and they're not creating the conditions that we need on life to thrive. They're not helping humanity do that. So once I came to this realization, and I don't know, a good 15, 12 years ago now, I've been just playing in a whole lot of different spaces of how we do that. So eco-villages, permaculture, how do you set up different communities on the ground to just start experimenting with meeting our needs more effectively? You know, just first principles thinking here, like, why do humans come together? Well, we came together to help meet our needs. Okay, what are our needs? And then let's actually talk about them. Like, I have a need for connection and for purpose and meaning and to feel seen. Like, we don't talk about so many of our human needs, and we don't even suggest that they're even needs at all. Our capitalistic systems, like, yep, put a roof over your head, give you food. Mental illness, what is that? Like, that's just a thing, right? Like, give them a pill, you know, let's just fix it. You know, we don't actually look at the underlying causes of social and ecological collapse. And that's our economic systems, our organization systems. So this is obviously where Web3 comes into the picture is, you know, I first started mining Bitcoin back in like 2011 when you could do it with 3G graphics cards and trying to figure out how to clock them and build a computer. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. Didn't actually end up mining a whole lot of Bitcoin, only maybe like a few hundred, which at that time was nothing, right? It was just like a joke, right? I wasted way more money on the equipment than I got through mining, and I thought it was a whole waste of time. But it was a lot of fun learning it. I got the first like ASIC when it came out, and then after that got outdated, which was way too quickly. I'm just like, this is an arms race I can't compete in, you know. But then I also started looking more into Bitcoin and being like, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense. We're putting a lot of money into electricity. Right now, Bitcoin's spending $10 billion a year on electricity fees. That's an enormous security budget. And that doesn't even help the network thrive. Like, the real security of the network is utility, you know, access, purpose, meaning. Like, why do people even want to use this? You know, we need to be spending $10 billion storytelling, actually getting adoption, you know, instead of having network fees, which were less than 10 billion, by the way. We could have used that money to literally pay people to use Bitcoin. Like, there's so many better things that Bitcoin could have done with $10 billion a year than just electricity fees. And once this realization came, we're like, well, why don't we use technology like this to fund local food systems? We need to localize our food systems. All the platforms that try to get set up to do this, they all fail. Because if Bob, your neighbor, is selling the pie for $5, you're not going to use a platform that's going to take a fee to buy the pie. You're going to walk over and be like, hey, Bob, here's $5. And that's what happened, is all the routine interactions went off platform. So all the platforms that just tried to set up local food systems, they kept failing. But we're like, okay, well, what if we attached a financial system to a local food system? Then the inflation of the network could pay people for using the platform for using and adopting it and starting a local food system. We can kind of reverse it. So it's better to use the platform than it is to use cash. And this could also be how we get people to exit the cash world and exit fiat for good, you know? We have to be better than cash. Like, we can't come out here with Bitcoin. Like, cash is instant, it's anonymous, you know, no one's tracking me, there's no transaction fees. Like, cash is awesome. Like, how do we make cryptocurrencies better than cash? Well, they have to be better than free. They need to be instant. They got to be rewarding you in some way in order to be superior than cash. So this is kind of where Seeds started. This is like, let's build a new financial system, make it better than cash. Let's use it to build a regenerative world and actually fund the shit people need that, you know, humanity needs right now if we're going to keep this experiment going. And then after we got going into that, we're like, well, it has to be democratic. It has to be organized by the people who are putting it together, right? So this is when Hypha started. So this is 5 years ago now, I guess, 4 years ago. We're like, how do we organize? Well, we need to have a DAO. And I was part of Steam It. I was, you know, making blog posts, and I was hearing about EOSIO and everything that was coming up. But like, well, this is it. Like, if we're going to do on-chain governance, it has to be fee-free. So all these fee-based platforms, they just don't work. I mean, you're even seeing in like ENF right now, people are like, oh, I don't want to redelegate my voice because it's like $40 to do so. It's like, what the hell is that about? Like, you're not going to get active governance, which is a serious issue already, if you're setting up a cost to participate. So anyway, we already knew this when we were getting started with decentralized governance. So EOSIO was the obvious, you know, choice to go with. So we've been part of this community for a long time. We've been building our DAO because we needed it. We're like, well, we are a global team. we need to figure out how to do a decentralized treasury, take funding, make decisions as a decentralized team. So we need a DAO. We looked at the current DAO tooling. They're all expensive, slow, didn't really do much. We're like, all right, so let's just start building our own. And it was kind of funny because when we got started building the DAO tooling, we thought maybe we were just going to close it down one day after we launched seeds. We're just like, we'll have this and then we'll just disappear. We'll launch seeds and we'll go on. But after 3 years and a lot of money and time and energy putting into this tool, we're like, wow, this is actually pretty awesome. So that's why you see our timelines a little bit weird. We didn't start with like the DAO builder to begin with because we never intended to help communities build a DAO. We were just building it for ourselves. So we just built a really powerful tool that we needed. And then after we've used it and we're like, yep, this works. We're like, oh, actually other communities want this. And this is after communities had come to us and like, we love this tool. We want it. We had 250 different organizations be like, yeah, we want to have this DAO builder. We're like, all right, cool. So this is when our new shift recently is like, let's get this tool out to communities. Because this is where I think Web3 really hits, meaning is, why we don't have adoption. We already have mass adoption of everyone who's going to join crypto. If crypto is only about speculation and staring at charts and trading tokens, only so many humans have the capacity or desire or even care about that shit at all. So if you're talking about mass adoption, you got to talk about the human spirit, what all humans want. And that is coordination, like humans coming together to do stuff together. And that story can be told a million different ways, whether you're an investment club and all you care about is money, or if you're a local food system and you want to start regenerating your community, or you're an indigenous tribe and you want to have a more effective way to exit capitalism, or whatever you're doing, you need tools to help coordinate you to do that. So then once we start telling that story, like we are here to rewrite the story of humanity, that story includes everyone. That's where mass adoption comes, when we start talking about building different types of civilizations. And it's just natural progression. I mean, you can look at it as biological progression, where if you really think about it this way, it's kind of mind-boggling, but I'll close out here. And if you look at like the evolution of life on our planet, it started out single cellular, multicellular, fungal kingdoms, plant kingdoms, animal kingdoms. It kept getting higher orders of complexity. And each new kingdom had a higher order of potential to interact with the world and affect change. Humans are incredible. We're right at the top of that right now. But are we done? Did evolution stop? No, like evolution is progressing. So we're building this higher order organism that's beyond humans. Well, what could be beyond humans? So this is what I think we're actually building right now, is kind of the meta-human. And just like the cells, the individual cells of our body come together to make the human. An individual cell's action potential to do stuff in the world is orders of magnitude less than ours. But when all those cells come together and build organs and this coordination potential, then you amplify several orders of magnitude what you're able to do and accomplish. And that's what DAOs are really doing, is they're creating this meta-human where we can come together and start building different organs and structures and coordination systems that help us do things that none of us could have even dreamed of doing on our own. And then that's really where systems change comes in. And then what do we do with that system? Well, that's what we're here to explore together. So that's my intro. That's kind of what I'm here. A little story about, got us here. And yeah, I'll stop there.
I can jump in with questions and stuff from there. I think it's fantastic. But please, top of your thoughts, Waxer, Chris, Rob.
Yeah, I just kind of would like you to define what a DAO means to you and what it means to Hypha. Is it for some people who might not know what a DAO is?
So what we're actually doing is
Yeah, just saying maybe you can contrast a DAO versus the do as well.
Yeah.
And just while you're taking the sip there, what I heard from what you were saying is that the DAOs, you see the utility or the purpose of the DAOs very much to do with hyper collaboration. And that's my phrase, but that's what I'm hearing from you, is that there's a massive amount of micro collaboration that can happen via how DAOs should or can work.
That's a lot there. Can I actually share screen too?
You totally can.
Let me
I might
do that here. Yeah. But anyway, so you asked, what is a DAO? What does it do? I think we actually need to give names to these acronyms, what they actually mean, and have falsifiable definitions. So we're taking a stab at doing all of that right now. And let me share with you a screen. Share here. first time using this. They're just asking me a bunch of questions. There you go. You guys see this?
I'm going to bring it up. So I'm going to add it to the stream. There you go.
Yeah. So this is us, and this is the other huge effort that Hypha has been taking on, is a knowledge base. So as we start doing our decentralized organizations, like what are roles? Like, does it make sense for every new organization to have to spend the first 3 years on deciding how they decide and what structure they should use and who does what and doing all of this stuff over again? It's an incredible waste of time. So we've actually done a whole lot of effort building templates and designing roles and policy and all this stuff. Everything an organization needs to run, we're giving a whole bunch of different templates and examples and playbooks and strategies. So when a new DAO comes to the fore and the people are coming and deciding like, hey, how do we make decisions together? Well, you can actually come here to DAO strategies and be like, you know, who wields authority? So there's a bunch of different authority patterns of, you know, who has power in the organization and why and how. And then the communication strategies. How do we communicate? Governance strategies. How do we govern? And all this stuff, right? So what is a DAO to me is it's a new design space of possibilities. If you really want to talk about the highest, what is it? It's saying we can design new organization systems, new structures for coordination. And here is programmable technology. And once it's programmable, we can do anything with it that allows us to continually evolve how we're coordinating to better reflect what we need, what we're trying to accomplish, how we want to accomplish it, whatever our purpose of a community of coming together is. We now have tools to consciously evolve how we're doing it. So that's the biggest frame. But then what we've actually tried to do is, you know, give definitions to all of these, you know, very maybe confusing to most people, but definitely arcane is do, DAO, whatever. So we have to take in, there's a couple different meanings. So one, what is D? There's a lot of different Ds out there. You could be decentralized or you could be distributed is the two ones that we're working with. Distributed meaning that you have multiple leaders. Decentralized meaning you have no leader. If you have no leader, it's really hard to coordinate. Not a lot gets done. If you're actually decentralized, not much gets done. You need some form of centralization in order to focus energy and efforts and do stuff. So distributed is about having that, but making sure it's equally distributed across the organism. We have lots of leaders. So if decentralized has no leaders, distributed has lots of leaders, right? And I think it's important to talk about because they're two completely different ways of building secure, fraud resistant, and meeting all the things that we really want to accomplish. They're just different structures of doing that. So what I think is a DAO, I think Bitcoin's really kind of the only DAO, or similar ones like Bitcoin, because if it's fully decentralized and autonomous, then you don't really need any humans making agreements or doing stuff on a regular basis. No new decisions need to be made in order for DAO to stay alive. It's just happening. You know, like the best thing I heard about a DAO back in the day is you can have a DAO of self-driverless cars and they're paying for their own maintenance and they're running themselves and you don't even need any humans. It's like, okay, that's kind of a DAO. It's like, how do we automate everything? And there's places where that makes sense. At least this is how we're looking at it. We've been in this thing for a while. So where the do came in is we replaced A, automation or autonomous, with H, human or holonic. So we said, let's put the human at the center of these new structures. And we're talking about how do we design governance structures that are human-centric, that help humans come together and coordinate new systems and meet their needs. So that's kind of the shift we took. Holonic being also how we scale our organization structures, which kind of looks like this, you know, circles within circles. So you can infinitely scale down or up whatever ecosystem you're building using holons. So it's kind of the general organizing principle behind how dues operate. And then, of course, you could have a whole bunch of different endings. Are you a DAC? You know, a corporation, which is fine. Do you want to be a digital corporation? And that's what I think most DAOs are today, is they're just digital investment clubs masquerading as something different. It's fine, but just be honest about that. Say, hey, we're a digital corporation. Great, you know, or we're a community. We're trying to do a community-based process, which might have multiple purposes and a whole wide range of what they're trying to accomplish. Or you might be an organism, which is what I was talking about, which is like DAOs working together in a network of other DAOs, all sharing the same type of meta goal. So kind of like the human, each organ could represent a DAO, for example. So you might have 15 different DAOs, all playing different organs within this meta ecosystem to accomplish something. So that's seeds. Seeds is kind of this DAO organism, where it's a bunch of different DAOs as organizing structures. And I'll actually show you what that looks like here because it's helpful. So this is a picture of the seeds ecosystem and all the different organs that we currently have and the different DAOs that are part of those organs. So for example, one organ we have is ecosystem facilitation and nurturing, like helping people understand what this is all about, where they fit into it, welcoming them aboard, like building ambassadors, like all of that stuff. That's a function that an ecosystem needs. So that becomes an organ. And then any organization, currently have 2 that are working on that, they can make up that organ, right? And then movement building, communication growth, building tools, doing deep governance and learning, the actual regeneration story, economics, and all of this stuff, right, makes up different organs in an ecosystem. So this is where we're looking at the organismic model of how do we start, synchronistically and syntropically, rather, is what I'm looking for, coordinate as organisms, like healthy forests do, right? So this is kind of the exploration we're at right now, and that's a whole lot. So I'll pause there because I don't want to,
Chris, do you want to let me back into the stream?
You are, Gav.
Okay, great. That's obviously a tremendous amount of detail there. I got a curiosity here, like a challenge for all of us to get our heads around the opportunity with regenerative communities, intentional communities. Maybe I'll go into a bit of my travel story as the conversation unfolds, but the idea that, Rieki, you mentioned you mentioned what the world needs, that we're destroying the planet, this, that, and all of the different bits. We've got to contrast that against what people want, right? So oftentimes what we might agree, the 6 of us in consensus of what we need as a society, is not the trend that the mass market is going in to date. Things might change as things start to collapse and there are survival pressures and realizations and awakenings. But on the whole, at least to date, people have wanted pretty much what they've got, what they've done, how they live. I've visited quite a few communities, some so-called intentional communities, certainly in parts of Europe. I've traveled Southeast Asia, South America, I've been in Canada and different places. I have not been to Russia, China, or Africa. But the intentional communities, they're not exactly what I see as idyllic. I think there are projects that are functional, that are relatively successful. But my point really is, it's not what we want for the kind of experience that we're looking at. So it's an open question. It's a challenge for all of us, is to understand, and how do we influence moving in an efficient way, in a successful way towards what we want, given that it might not be what the mass market wants, even if it's what they need.
I kind of look at this as almost a barrier to entry into DAOs. So you have to sign up to the DAO to enter, and not everybody will want to sign up to that particular DAO. But there may be multiple structures or multiple DAOs which would be more suitable for your ideologies, I presume. Do you think that would be...
Start a new one if they're one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Start a new one. That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of think that's probably a good thing, because it allows for a certain limitation. A DAO can't necessarily outgrow itself. It has its limitations based on its society, which I find quite interesting. Are there any other limitations on a DAO beyond the acceptance of the individual to the common goal or the group dynamics?
Are there limitations to just humans, what we can construct by organizing? Probably not.
I think at least this is how we've kind of been approaching at Hypha, is what are coordination primitives? So what are the bases of coordination? So we need to acknowledge that coordination. We need to decide on what we're doing, and we need to distribute power to be able to do stuff. So these are different types of primitives. There's more, but this is kind of what we're trying to get at, is we provide the primitives, so the basics of coordination, and then let groups come together and remix that in all sorts of different ways. And it's an infinite, kind of sandbox and design space. Because I completely agree with you, Gabrielle. I don't think anyone's, solved it. And I haven't found an intentional community yet, and I've visited a lot, that I wanted to stay at. And we're still on that search, and maybe we even need to start one. You know, and I think a lot of people kind of feel that way, and that's perfect, because the real hack to building an intentional community I've seen is no one's followed a manual. All the ones that succeeded, they did it their own way, and then they wrote a manual. So the right way is actually come together as a community and work together to meet something that's unique to your community's needs, the way you guys want to collaborate and coordinate. That's the real process, and that's the successful pattern. So then how do we support that? How do we make that easier? How do we make that fun? You know, that's kind of the process we've been on as well. We need the tooling to do it. And then humans love playing games. We can all sit down, open up a book, you know, read about a game manual, and then you start playing an entirely new game. All of that is just an economic and coordination system. So if we go about our organizations that similar way, we're like, okay, cool, show up. Here's the game manual. We learn how to play it. Cool, now pick up a role. You know, here's a step-by-step process. Good, now we're doing the game, you know? And we make it more like that. Then it becomes a lot easier for systems change for people to step into this, right? Because we're approaching it that the way that humans want to be approached, you know, in a fun, joyful, you know, meaningful way. Anyway, I don't know. I've kind of taken it in a different way, so I'll send it back over there.
Well, and sometimes the humans need to see the system in front of them to adopt it, right? You have the visionaries who create something new, and once everyone else sees what's there and what's possible, they can adopt it. But until they see what's possible, it's hard for them to imagine what they're capable of.
So that begs the question: where are we now? Like Rieki, maybe what's the state of the software that you're working on? How like, is it ready for communities to start plugging into, or just what's your roadmap from this point out?
Anyone who wants to do this, we've set up one video that walks through all the non-technical stuff you need to do as a community for this to work anyway. There's already some decisions that need to be made that require you to get together on a call and make decisions, you know, and some of these decisions are going to need to be made without technology anyway. I say that because the technology is not ready. We're still working on it. It's like 1 or 2 months out for other groups to be able to come on and launch their own DAOs. Because what we're trying to launch is like minimal lovable technology. You know, we could have launched a minimal viable, you know, DAO a while ago, but it would have been like most DAOs where you launch it, nobody does anything with it. You know, there's a lot of hype, but they're like, okay, now I have a multi-sig contract now on. It's like, okay, so if there's not a process for you to actually move together, figure out how to make decisions, fill up roles, and actually do something meaningful and practical, why bother launching it? So that's why I've kind of also delayed doing it, you know, because we want it to actually work for people when they show up and not waste their time, you know. So we've actually, there's a couple videos on how to do a DAO where it walks you through the process of, yeah, perfect. So I'd highly suggest watching this, and there's some links in it and at the end that give you different templates that you can run with, that you and your community who wants to launch a DAO right now can walk through to start making some of those decisions. Like, how do we compensate each other? Are we going to have multiple salary bands? Are we all getting paid the same? Okay, well, how are we going to make decisions? Is it one person, one vote? Is it, you know, you can have a bunch of different Hypha token or Hypha voice tokens. So we have different voting strategies. How do we get these voice tokens? So there's some basic questions that need to be answered for how you're going to operate as a community that you can start working on right now. Yeah, so this is perfect. Go through this video. And then I suggest that now. And then by the time you guys have figured all that out, the DAO tooling will be ready, and then you walk right into the do, which if I could share my screen, I'll just show you just super quick what that actually looks like. So many buttons to share screen here. There we go.
There we go.
Actually, so I'm already logged into one. So how do I? There it is. All right, so you go back to the global one where you can actually see it all. It's because this is zoomed in too far. It's weird. Okay, so this is what we're building right now that we're about to launch. It'll show all the different DAOs. These are terrible examples. Apologize, it's just, you know, quick design. But anyway, you can come here, click your own new DAO. You know, give it a name, description, why people are going to join it. Great. Now this is what I was talking about. We need to have templates because DAOs are complex. And we can't say, hey, you have this infinitely designed, you know, complex design space, get started, you know, people's brains are going to break. So we have some different templates that they can start with that have, you know, predetermined structures. But the DAO, again, the whole point is that they're designed to evolve. So you step into a structure that's there, and then you get to test it out, feel it out, and then, of course, continually tweak and modify it to meet your community's needs. But anyway, you can click on one of these structures if you want. But I'm going to do a custom one, so let's keep going. And then you go through and you design your utility token. So this is a token that you have the power to mint. Maybe it's a share. If you set up a Wyoming DAO LLC, this could be a security, and it's an actual proper security. Great, and you're sharing a security. Maybe it's a utility token and it has access to your community, or whatever it is. Like, you get to design what this token means to your community. Then you have a voice token, which is separate from the utility token. The utility token is often on exchanges. This is typically the one that has a dollar value to it and that you're trading and buying and selling. Why the voice token is non-transferable. We did that on purpose because we said we want to give the communities the ability to not be oligarchies and plutocracies, meaning governance by the wealthy and a small minority, which is what every other DAO is. If you have a tradable token on exchanges, all you're saying is, okay, we want to be a pure plutocracy. The more money that you have, the more voice you have in our company. Fine. And if you want to do that, that's great, and you can design it that way. But what we said is actually you could design it differently, where you could distribute voice differently from financial value. So what we've done in Hypha is every dollar that you contribute, whether it's your time or capital or whatever it is, you earn one voice token. So we're just treating it the same. So time contributors, members in the organization are earning voice, which is also kind of nice because then your DAO is governed by the people who've contributed the most, which means they likely have the most information, opposed to your DAO is governed by the wealthiest, which in our case is a bunch of VCs who have the least interest because they have way too many things to focus on. So a lot of DAOs, like major governance share, is by this VC who has no idea what's happening in that community because they don't have the time to really be involved with the community. At least that's one perspective. But anyway, the point is this allows communities to design their voice however they want. And then a treasury token. So this is their payment token. So we give the ability for you to mint your own utility token or use your own separate payment token. So Seeds is a payment token, or you can have your own dollar stable coins. So Hypha has a protocol for you to mint your own dollar or euro stable token backed by your own treasury. So we have a treasury of Bitcoin and EOS and Telos and a whole bunch of different cryptos. And that's our treasury. And then we mint our own Hypha USD as payment. And then when people want to convert that out, then they say, hey, I want to claim $1,000. And I can actually literally show you guys this because we've been doing this for a few years now. Taking you on a huge journey, bear with me. But this is our DAO that we've been using. So this is live right now. I'm logged in. Let me take you to my wallet. So these are the assignments that I have. I can come to my profile. See my assignments, claim my pay, which I haven't done for 2 weeks. So let me show you me literally doing that right now. Okay, so I just claimed 1 week, 2 week. Okay, so I claimed my pay for this assignment that I've been filling for this last period. Cool. I'm going to claim this one later. But I can come up here to my wallet. So I just claimed my pay. So let me refresh this so you can see my HUSD go up because it was at 60 cents before. Oh, did my pay not have any HUSD? It didn't. Never mind. I didn't get paid dollars. I took all my pay and Hypha tokens deferred, which you see that I have here. All right, so I can claim my HUSD. So I could say, hey, I'm going to claim that. Oh, they're not going to let me claim unless it's greater than $1. Anyhow, how it would work is if I had dollars to claim, I would be able to type them in here, click, redeem, or I could buy seeds directly or buy Hypha. So then every DAO is going to have the same ability, where communities can say, hey, actually, I'm going to take my pay and all of the utility token or equity token or whatever it is.
That's a pretty cool, that's a neat characteristic where when an organization creates pay structure for people who want to participate, you can sort of customize that to take equity in the organization itself, its tokens. And so that just shows, a greater commitment to what you're actually trying to build on here, because you're not just trying to extract value from the community and turn it into USD. You actually want to extract the tokens that are part of this organization and hold them if you really believe in it. Like it's a great alignment of incentive.
100%. And what this does is it gives groups infinite treasuries because you can always mint more shares and issue them, or utility tokens, or again, whatever they are. As long as people believe they're going to be valuable in the future, which they will be if you're paying them out to people who are adding value. So the game is really awesome. The tokens are backed by the value that has been contributed. And you're only minting these tokens if value is being contributed, right? So they should always actually equal what the company is worth. Today, we arbitrarily create shares and we say, hey, I started a company, we're going to have 1 billion shares and this person thinks it's worth 100 million, so it is. That's what the hell? And we said it differently. Actually, the company starts with 0 tokens. And we're only minting tokens when someone's contributing time, ideas, money, whatever it is. But we actually put a dollar value on everything contributed. And then that's how we value, justify our valuation. Is we say, well, we're worth 100 million because we captured 100 million worth of value through people's time and energy and resources, whatever it is. We could prove it. It's all on chain, right? So it's kind of it's a new way of being able to go about how we value what we're starting up as well. But here's me actually walking through, like, here's some assignments that you can apply for in Hypha right now. You click apply, it says, fill all this out, what are you doing, and blah, blah, blah. But anyhow, I get to choose the percent I'm committed. So I'm full-time, I'm part-time, I'm 10% of my time, whatever it is. How much of my time am I contributing to this role? Or however a community is doing it. Maybe committed means something different to them. But what this says is you could get paid at a percentage of whatever this role is. And then I get to choose how much I'm going to take upfront in the payment token versus deferred in the utility token. And in this case, this role is set to say, actually, at a minimum, I have to take 40% of my pay deferred. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to take 40%, but I really like this organization. So, I think it's going places, and I don't really need that much money up front right now anyway. So I'm going to take it an 80% because I really want to invest in this company. And then it shows me down here, actually, I've got to put how much I'm committed. So it shows me down here then what my salary is going to be for a week and for a month. So then I'm taking out of the treasury $2,000, but I'm getting paid $18,000 as well, or $16,000 rather. So what's cool here, and this is the voice that I would be earning. So it says how much voice I'm earning, how much of the payment token I'm earning, and how much of the equity, utility, whatever I'm earning. And what's nice here is then we can actually, value time contributors. It's so sad that the CEO of Apple, even though it's huge anyway, he's worth like $3 billion. But at that time, he's been CEO. He took Apple from like 200 billion to 2 trillion or something. So the main guy adding the most value to that organization, that's probably absurd. A lot of people are adding value. But I'm saying one person adding a lot of value, like they didn't capture anything relative to the value they contributed. And neither did any of the employees, right? But if your organization is minting equity to the people who are actually contributing, not just Wall Street VCs, because that model is literally indentured servitude. We have the people who literally have the power to create money out of nothing. And we're giving them the right to then just invest and own all of our organizations and our productive time. And then they extract most of the value. It's an absurd system, but it's brilliantly designed by those extracting all the value. But this way we say, no, the value is going to go to those who are contributing the most value. And what Hypha has done also is we just treat dollars and time as the same. So if you contribute $100,000, then you come in here and you literally make a proposal, which you come over here, you click contribution, make a proposal. I'll type in here, be like, I've contributed $100,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is. I've sent it in Bitcoin to this address. Here's the on-chain proof. I want to mint, 100,000 or whatever it is worth of the equity token. So this is how much I want to get paid in value. Same number as the above, and I'm going to take 100% deferred because I want everything in the equity token. Cool. So this is how an investor can come here and then invest into your organization. We've used this. This is on-chain proof. This is how it works. It's great. And then you can actually do it different. You can say, actually, investors, we're not going to give them as much voice because they're not going to use it anyway. They want to be silent. So maybe we give 0, or maybe we're going to give, half the voice because whatever, or whatever your motive is in your organization, you get to choose how much cash investors get for voice versus people who are contributing time. How does your organism want to make decisions? It's kind of up to you to decide that, right? And then, of course, we have badges as well. So this is where you come to create a badge. There's no new proposals up right now for me to vote on, but we'll come down and look at badges that already exist. And badges give you different multipliers. So we said, people are doing facilitating, which is a role, and there's a process to become a facilitator. Those people are gathering a lot of information in the organization. They know what's going on. They're talking with people. They're holding space, right? So we said, okay, if you're a facilitator, you're going to earn more voice. We're going to give you a 2.5% boost. So when you're holding a role and the facilitator badge, we're going to give you more voice in the organization because we really like that. But you could use badges for anything. We didn't have this one, but for example, an apprentice badge. If you want someone they're going to fill a role, but they don't really know what they're doing, they're learning, then you can have a badge that, halves all of their pay and halves all of their voice. So you can take away voice and things if you have like an apprentice badge or something like that, or you can multiply voice and pay and all that stuff if there's something that's demonstratively proving that you're doing great things. Then you can have badges, and you can issue a new badge every single year you've been part of it, and that could be how you give a raise. So a badge that's like, hey, 1 year with the company badge, and every year you've been here, you get a 3% bonus. Like, cool, every year you get this new badge. And then when you go and look at all the different members, you get to see up here with the different badges they're holding.
And this is running on Telos right now. Like everything we're seeing now is smart contract backed on Telos. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything's happening on chain. Not on Telos really anymore. I'll show you one more thing, and I'm sorry. I feel like every one of my answers is just so long.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
The question got asked in Discord, or it was in one of the Telegram chats, and they wanted us to ask you if there's still plans for Hypha to come to EOS. And so you can maybe speak to that, but I think
this is what we
starting
do. You see my sharing now is, do you guys know Max Gravit? You probably do.
Yeah.
Brilliant developer, and he's been working on this document graph. He calls it, I call it the DAO graph, but for the last few years. And it's basically a middle layer that allows us to be compatible with any layer one. And then the information comes to the document graph, and then that's what feeds the DAO tool itself. So in this way, we can actually just integrate with any layer one, and then the DAOs launching get to choose what layer one they want to be part of. And this is actually, I think, a pretty brilliant move, because then we can connect to all the other layer ones that charge fees. And then what's the DAO going to choose? Are they going to choose to launch their DAO on just a secure technology, same user interface, and choose one that has fees, all the other layer ones, or choose ones that are free and instant EOSIO world? So I think it's a brilliant way to actually bring everything into EOSIO is through this middle layer that we built. So this isn't, when are you coming to EOS? It's when are you becoming compatible with the EOS blockchain? And that's if we get funded to do it, because we're building a lot of stuff. Our developers are stretched thin. We're focused on getting the DAO tooling out. We put up a Pomelo grant last season. We said if we get 50K, we'll focus on building a bridge to EOS. We got 5, which was great. If we get 50K this time, which is what the developer said, this is what it'll take to integrate with the new layer one, which is basically what it looks like. Every layer one we want to add is about a 50K development cost. And then anyway, so that's what we're looking at. When we'll come to EOS, once we get funded and resourced to build that bridge, which is what we're just looking for here.
So which bridges do you have now then? So Telos sounds like for sure.
And then that we have.
Okay.
Yep. So we built this document graph with Telos, but then we went to Ethereum Denver, and we've been talking with a whole bunch of different layer ones now with Polkadot and Cosmos and Ethereum and Telos. We started the conversations here, and now we're just looking for what layer one to integrate with. But then honestly, I started having the conversations with the Telos Foundation and you guys, and maybe it doesn't make sense for us to split our time, because honestly, we're looking for funding right now because we want to scale. We spent all of our time building, not fundraising, because we couldn't give a shit. And now we ran out of funds. So oops, now we have to tell our story and actually get out there. So we can approach other layer ones for funding to integrate with them, which is the conversation that we're having with them. And additionally, we can actually come to Telos Foundation and you guys and all of this to get funding to just stay in EOSIO, build the best DAO tooling here, and then say, great, if you want DAO tooling, come to this world. So we get to do both of these things, but we're a team that has only so much energy and focus we can take on. Mm-hmm. So we're exploring that right now, saying where do we best move next? I would love to just focus on building tools and getting them out there. And if we can get resourced within the EOSIO communities to do that, great. Then we can keep our focus there. If we can't, then we got to shift our focus to integrating with other layer ones and trying to get resourced in those communities. So that's kind of just the general playbook.
Got it.
So if I was running a business or a project currently on blockchain, what would be the main reason I'd want to transfer across to a Hypha DAO network?
On-chain governance that's not charging you fees and it's not being slow. So on-chain governance that's free. Not only that, we have the most advanced tooling of any DAO I've seen. So being able to do badges and roles and assignments and quests and multiple pay structures and creating your own stable coin and being able to have on-chain multi-sig for changing the contracts. Like all of this is built. We've been running with it for several years. So you get the most advanced DAO without fees. Why wouldn't you? And you can actually manage your other multi-sigs. We've done this. We've had a multi-sig Ethereum Gnosis wallet. For anytime we use Ethereum. We hardly use it anymore because it's so damn expensive, but we have it. And we govern that with badges. So on chain in the Hypha DAO, we say if you're holding the Treasury badge, then you get the multi-sig access to Bitcoin and Ethereum and our other off-chain wallets. So you can govern your NFT stock on Ethereum and use the Hypha DAO to actually do all your real governance. So rather than asking them to pay to participate in, off-chain and all that stuff that they're doing to kind of get away from doing on-chain governance, just come do on-chain governance. And it's super simple. So it's a pretty simple one. Everyone we talk to is like, great, we want this. We've had huge, like, yes, we want this. We had 250. We didn't do any marketing really. We made these stories and put them on a YouTube channel with not a lot of following. Let's get real. We don't have time to go out there and spam it out there. But we had 250 organizations come up and be like, yeah, we want this. So it's a huge signal from the community that yes, this is helpful. We want these tools. So, and the last thing is we don't give a shit about going out there and marketing anyway. We just want to build something really powerful and let gravity of what we're doing attract people and then just onboard them. Like, we don't have the capacity or time to go out there and try to convince people to use our tools. And honestly and frankly, we don't need to. So that's kind of our perspective and what I'm holding. Maybe that's helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're on mute, Gav.
Thanks. A lot in terms of governance, and then we're talking about governance of a system. You mentioned systems thinking right at the beginning. We're talking about the contribution that people are making to the system, and then we're talking about the compensation that they get back by their contribution. Peter Drucker, I'm sure you know, was very, very popular in terms of systems thinking and business management, probably in the 80s or even before that. Supported a lot in terms of Japanese manufacturing efficiencies with the development of the lean methodology for manufacturing. The Toyota way came out of that. A lot of good stuff has come out of that. And they talked a lot about, I think the word is muda, which meant waste, which is essentially inefficiencies, and getting rid of the inefficiencies in systems. And it takes a lot of oversight or visibility and transparency in terms of, back in that day, it would have been mid-level managers discussing and having conversation between the staff, the people that are working, reporting, reports, documentation. So we're looking at automating a lot of that. I'm curious, question there is, how does the platform that you're working on allow people to submit a proposal for work that they're either going to do or that they have done? Correct me where I'm wrong. And then where is the visibility or the oversight to ensure that people are doing a commensurate amount of work based on what they get back as compensation, so that their contribution and their compensation are equitable, and it makes sense for the system at large based on the budgeting that you've got and the system, the community dynamics?
Ooh, I'm gonna unfortunately have to respond along again to tell the whole story, but that's a powerful question. Starting with the most philosophical down to the most practical. So let me get there. Is, how do we, oversee and ensure that people are doing effective things is kind of a general question. I hate the top-down idea that people aren't creative, people aren't going to do productive things unless they're coerced to do it. So we need accountability. We need to make sure, we need managers to check on them and tell them what to do and all this stuff. So we have this, like, humanity is children, not even that, like, because children are brilliant, but humanity are machines that need to be told what to do type of philosophy. So I think a lot of corporations have been designed on that, with all this pyramid structure, top down, like, how do we do that? That's very command control thinking. What the new paradigm is all about is self-organization. And it comes from the idea, are you guys seeing the sharing?
I'll add it.
So this is, again, biggest philosophy, and I'll get down to the most practical, is from Japan, as well as this concept of Ikigai. And the Ikigai is, what you love creating, in this case, it's for seeds. So this is the seeds one, but like what the Renaissance needs, what the transition needs, what you'll get paid for and what you're good at. So it's all about helping people find this space. And then when you help people find this space, you don't need to manage them. You just need to empower them. And then the tools we're building are about empowering us to do it. And we don't have to waste all of this energy with oversight as well. Because that's kind of the great irony, is we think we're wasting all these resources because if we let people be too free, they're just going to, like, run off and do whatever. So we're going to waste all of this actual energy paying managers and these mid-level blah, blah, blah to go and make sure people are going to, it's obnoxious, really. So we approached it a different bottom-up approach. It's like, how do we empower people? So it's a different way of thinking about it. And I'll get into really practical about what that actually looks like in the do itself. And again, organizations, they get to take their own flavor here. They can be really self-organizing and use roles and give a lot of trust to people to just show up and do what they need to do. Or they can have a tighter rope if they don't feel that level of trust in their community. They can have a lot of oversight. All of this is possible and flexible within the DHO tooling that we built. And I'll show the different ways of doing that right now. So you can come to one-time activity and you can put in a quest proposal. So you said, how do I come in and add value to the community? If I'm just a random member, I can come and do a proposal to say, hey, this is the name of it. This is what I would like to do. I think it would be really great if we made a video for the community because, I'm good at it and I think it blah, blah, blah. And here's why we need it. Supporting information. I would like to get paid this much money for doing it. And then that becomes a proposal. So save as draft, I review it, blah, 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 and I make it as a proposal, right? And then if that proposal passes, then I can go and apply for that quest and say, okay, now I want to do the quest. Well, and actually that could be integrated into the same. So anyway, the first thing you get to do is you get to come to the community and say, I would like to do this and get paid this much for it. The community's like, yes, we love that idea. We're willing to pay you that much for it. Then I can go and do it. And then once I've done it, I'll say, okay, now I've done it. I've submitted it. I want to get paid. And that's what the next one is right here. Quest completion is. So I can come here and say, okay, I've done it. Oh, I can pick which quest I actually did. So then my quest, if it passed, it would be here. Click on that. And then I go and prove that I did it. And that goes up as a proposal. And the community's like, yep, you did it. We verified it. So in this sense, every circle within the organization, so a group of people who are doing stuff, they're verifying all the contributions to their community through this quest process. That is also really time consuming and a low trust environment because we don't trust you to actually do it. So we have to have this multi-step process where you're only paid when it's done. You can have that. And for some situations where there's a random member, fine. But for people who are regular contributors, that's what the role assignment is for. Is we're going to let you for the next 3 months. And this is what Hypha has done as a maximum 3 months so that people disappear or something happens. We don't have to actively go out there and try to close someone's role. Everything expires and has a sunset clause built into it. And then we have to re-agree. So we do this every quarter where we re-agree and say, yep, this last role, they've really been showing up for the last quarter. We like them. We're going to keep paying them. So this is where the oversight kind of comes in. It's collectively done. And we're all checking in on each other. We all know who's showing up. We all know if someone's slacking or not or whatever. And we got rid of the communities that you have to go out there and police each other because that's a terrible environment. You don't want to have a police. You don't want to feel like you're being watched. And instead say people have to re-agree to want you. So we've kind of turned it around. We say, show up for the last quarter because otherwise you might not have a job again next quarter. So continue to show up, add value, ensure that, you're doing something that's adding value to the community, and then the community can keep giving you a role, So that's, different ways that you can do that. Does that answer the question full? And I can keep showing you more stuff if that's helpful.
No, it definitely opens up that subject. I find it, the tool looks amazing. So kudos to your design person or team. I think it looks great. There's a subject that I looked into a few years ago called REA accounting, resource events and actors accounting. And another blockchain was looking to build a component, or it's kind of like an ERP, enterprise resource planning. That was the scope of it, just a massive kind of software replacement for how the command and control companies are currently governed. But the idea is, and I'm going to use my fingers to suggest a diagram because I don't actually have one to bring up on screen. But you're starting off, you got some resources. So it's like maybe you're baking a cake. And so the resources with the arrows that are going into the diagram, like a workflow diagram, is milk, flour, butter, sugar. And then you've got arrows that then go to the events that occur in this system to start to mix the ingredients and put it in the tin and then you've got actors who are taking those actions like switching on the oven and using the mixing bowl and the tools that are needed, the spatula and whatnot. And so you end up with a network diagram that ties together the resources required, the events that have to happen, and the actors who are contributing to actually produce a final product. And the idea is that you can therefore trace back the costs or the expenses and the value and the contribution that has gone into producing a product. So when the cake is then sold for $20, you trace back and you pay according to the effort or the contribution to cover and pay the actors who've been involved in the system. I think that sounds sensible, and I think maybe eventually in society we'll get to the point of a lot of sophisticated automation that allows that kind of thing to happen. IoT, the Internet of Things, the sensors. It also sounds a bit scary certainly for people like us to think that, well, are we going to have everything? Like you're saying, you don't want a mid-level manager to watch what you're doing. But if you've got sensors and cameras and weighing scales and all sorts of things that are analyzing, then is that the direction we're going to get to with the DAO automation? Or at least has that kind of concept been part of what you're looking to build with the platform? To what extent do you want that visibility on an economic contribution to what the community is developing?
You don't ask surface level questions, do you? All right, so REA, very familiar with that. I love the model. And we're actually talking about, and we want to build anything we build on top of the Hypha system, we're just calling coordination apps. And they're little packets that any DAO could be like, yep, we're going to integrate that one, we like this one, whatever, just like apps on anything, right? An REA model for helping price things is what we're actually looking at, because that is a big hurdle in communities. Is like, how is this $100? We have no idea. A lot of that time it's arbitrary, or whatever the market will pay, which again is also arbitrary based off rich people's preferences. It's weird. So it's not very good pricing structure. REA is great for that. But we already use that model. Resources, those are tokens. We have a bunch of different tokens that show you the different resources you have. If you want a community and you want to mint a different token for every resource because you want on chain, fine. All we did is we simplified it and we said, add the resource, let's give $1 value to that, and we'll mint you and send you a token for that. But we use this same model that communities could crowdfund for all their project, or crowd pool. And crowd pooling is where you bring in all of the assets you need as a community to launch. So the idea is we have a DAO that has roles and circles. You're having a whole organization structure because you need that to actually move forward. The reality is you don't need money. You need people doing things. So people can say, hey, I will do things, so people can contribute their time to your crowd pooling. You could also put it up to say, we need 10 hectares of land. Someone's like, well, I have 10 hectares of land. I'll contribute that. This 10 hectares is worth 10 million. So you're going to mint and issue me 10 million tokens. Great. We also need $10 million. Cool. So if I contribute money, I get $1 or a token for every dollar I give, or whatever it is. So that you take all the resources in and you mint everyone tokens out for all the stuff you need. And this fundamentally changes the game in ways that I think are hard to comprehend. But right now, we let people with money decide where humanity goes. Because everyone first thinks they need money to do a project. So every project idea gets started. They're like, all right, first step, let's go get permission from the people with money if we can do this or not. Because you have to go and get funded. So what did we say? People who do the funding are the only ones making decisions on what gets funded and where humanity progresses. But instead, if we get right to the first principles of what we need to move forward, and we say, we want to start a village, we need land and people to show up, and we need trees, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we already have all of this within our community. Let's pool it all together. Let's make the project happen. We don't need the permission of money anymore, right? So this is where crowd pooling comes in, where we look at resources differently when we bring it all on chain and we account for that. Great. Events. Everything that happens within the community that's meaningful, put it on chain. We make a policy decision, let's put it on chain and vote for it. So there's clear and transparency around what's been agreed to, when it was agreed to. Actually, this is great. I'm going to show it to you too, because I love doing this. Let me just show you real time what that actually looks like in the DAO. Let's go down to some proposals. So here's some different proposals.
Reshare your screen, Rieki. I think you've removed it. There we go. Here it's coming now.
So here's all the different proposals. You actually look at the top. Here's the governance this community is using. They're saying 20% of the community needs to come together, and we need 80% support. Because we think 50-50 is stupid. If 50% of the people saying something's a bad idea is your threshold in a community to not do something, you're going to have a lot of bad ideas. You're going to be split and divided, and you're going to look like nation states today that suck. Instead, we say, 20% is a pretty powerful signal that we shouldn't do something. If 20% is signaling not to do it, we probably need to rethink the model or evolve it. So we actually say we need 80% support. But again, that's flexible. Every community gets to decide whatever they want, Quorum, how many people need to show up? So actually tweaking these is how every different community decides how they want to do governance. If you want consensus, then your quorum's 100%, and you need 100% unity, right, etc. Okay, but you can come down here, you see a proposal, then you get to see the comments and the dialogue that happened. Who all voted for it, what the vote outcome was, and you have this on-chain forever with every policy decision. So you can have a policy here that says this is agreements that we made. This is actually an assignment, so it looks a little bit different than a policy, but anyway. And then everyone's comments that are stored on-chain as well. And we're actually integrated with IPFS, so the bigger information will just be hashed. Well, it's already getting hashed, and then stored on IPFS. So this is something that we've already integrated into that DAO graph, that middle layer I was telling you guys about. Anyway, so this is really important for communities to get clear on what events happened, what agreements were made, what are we agreeing to? And then the agents bit is where you get into the roles, members, badges. So you have all the different agents. The agents can hold on to badges that give them certain rights and authorities and different powers. We have the assignments that are saying this agent is doing this over a period of time and who has power. So this is where we get into distributed governance, right? Is instead of saying no one has power in our organization to act, we need consensus to do anything, and then communities get stalled and go nowhere, which is what all the DAOs today are learning about right now. They're like, hey, if we try to make decisions about everything all together all the time, we get burned out with governance pretty fast and nothing happens. It's like, great, of course, we've already learned this lesson. So this is where roles come into play, is you have all of the community then decide who has power to act explicitly over this period of time. So that's why an assignment, it lasts 3 months and it gives you explicit authority to do something. So instead of saying we're going to work together as a community to make a video to say what we're about, and this video is never going to get made because no one takes any authority to actually move anything forward, we say we want to make a video, so we're going to have these 10 roles. We need a photographer, a filmographer, an editor, whatever. They know what they're supposed to do and get done. Then the community as a whole votes those roles in, gives funding for it, and then those people are empowered to act and get stuff done. They don't have to keep coming back to the community and asking permission to act, right? Anyway, I was going to show you all that, but whatever. All of that's possible, and that's kind of how we're running, if that makes sense.
That's really, really awesome. Does it mean, how does the budgeting, how do you see the options for creating budgets? Because Waxer on our team produces a lot of video. Even if he has the 3-month kind of contractual role, I guess that makes it easier in terms of budgeting, because the organization can decide this is the value of this role on a generally ongoing basis, right? So that's easier in that sense. If it's ad hoc, if it was, well, like an individual contributor says, I think a documentary will be good and it's going to cost $5,000 worth of tokens. Does that mean that a budgeting system has to earmark a certain amount that can be used for those kind of things? Otherwise, the community is just voting on a week-to-week basis, and the budget will just get used up by whatever seems like a good idea in the moment, but you might run out of money in 3 months' time because you've allocated it to a couple of cool sounding documentaries.
Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways to do this, because really what you're asking is how does the community decide where energy flows? And this is where the holonic structure comes in I was talking about. So again, we're experimenting with a bunch of different ways, but one way is the community as a whole uses a budgeting process, which maybe looks like this. So this is a framework we did to aggregate a budget across an ecosystem. Here is actually councils doing it to different organizations. But this same thing fractals down where you can have different members of a DAO, and these are the different circles in that DAO. Circles being like, storytelling and marketing and tools and technology, human resources, etc. And then collectively as a membership base, they say, all right, let's distribute X% of our budget to these different areas. So you can use collective intelligence to set a budget. Or you can have a council doing it, which is another thing we've run with, is we have a group of 10 people who know a lot about the organization, just set a budget for the different circles. So that's the first step is, oops, didn't mean to stop sharing. Let me go back to that. So that's the first step is how do you budget, fractally down into your organizations and then empower those different circles. And then those circles, which you can see here, they would have their own budget. So you can't spend the entire organism's resources on a film. That proposal for that film would go to the storytelling circle who has money to pay for marketing and storytelling. And they could be then that community who's just focused on storytelling, they're connected with that. You're not asking the developers to make a decision about a documentary. Like that's a waste of time for governance. So it's just the people who are doing storytelling and holding roles in that circle. And the communication, or let's just click on anchor. So this anchor circle has its own governance container. So each circle within the organization has members who are part of that circle and making decisions for that circle. Because we're trying to fractal and push the decision to the edges. That's one of the key, design methodologies in self-organization is that people who are most connected to a decision needing to be made are the ones that are most empowered to make it. That you're not trying to pull in people from halfway across the organization to make a decision on something they have no context on. And then I know otherwise your whole ecosystem spends all the time trying to make decisions. So this is what Hypha's kind of been designing is let's fractal the decision out to the edges. Let's empower people to be able to make those decisions, but let's make sure it's all on-chain, transparent, and people are accountable because roles disappear every 3 months. So you have to keep filling them out and keep going, and there's a bunch of different ways of doing ecosystem budgeting. So that's something we're exploring with like 4 different ways right now. But again, we'll call those apps. And it'd be like, well, we're going to do budgeting across the organization this way. We think that's a good idea, or make altogether new ways. That's hopefully what we start doing in Hypha is we start seeing a lot of new innovation from the organizations themselves, building different types of, coordination tools. And then what's powerful is then when this organization way over here comes up with a new coordination tool, any organization then copy that and learn from it too. So we can start learning as a whole ecosystem. And this is why Hypha is called Hypha, this is what Hypha, which is the mycelial network, it's what it's called after. It's little hairs of the mycelial network that connect the forest. That's the role Hypha plays in the ecosystem, is that this tree over here is getting attacked by bugs and it's figuring out what it needs to put into its pollen to repel them. Once it learns that secret, it sends it through the mycelial network and teaches all the other trees how to make it. And then they start making that pollen and producing it and preparing for this, pest invasion, and then they're defended. That's one example, but they share resources, they do all sorts of stuff. So we want to mirror our coordination technology that way. So when one part of the ecosystem learns something, we can all kind of adapt it and learn together. So then we're not wasting our time learning the same things in circles,
So Rieki, I was looking on your profile and you seem quite heavily involved with seeds. Is the seeds, if you could give a bit of a background on that, and is that adopting your DAO?
So Hypha got started for the sole purpose of building seeds. Our role was, starting seeds. And we had this vision at one point that Hypha would be the DAO for all of seeds. So if any person was wanting to contribute, real time and seriously to it, then they just join Hypha. But very quickly, we learned that's about as absurd as us saying the only organ we need is a liver. And we figured out that's what we were saying because Hypha had a certain boundary. There's only so much complexity we could take on. Way too many people are showing up being like, we want to contribute with way too many different skill sets. So what ended up organically happening is all these different groups formed. And right now there's like 12 different organizations. When I was showing you that map of the seeds ecosystem, those are all different groups of people who formed their own DAO structure. And they've been doing stuff in Excel sheets and stuff for the last couple of years, like preparing to launch. So they'll be the first DAOs that we launch is they've already done all the work to organize themselves. So then seeds is a conglomeration of organizations using the DO tooling. And originally Hypha was the only one selling seeds. So when you went to joinseeds.earth and you're selling them, but the seeds community, after they had fractaled out, they're like, actually, no, there's 12 organizations working on seeds, not just Hypha. They voted down Hypha's proposal for funding back last June. And they said, nope, we need to redesign this. And then we went through like a year-long governance process of coming up with this thing called the Seeds Commons, which is a new structure that is then any seed that's sold comes to this commons. And the commons uses that governance process I was showing you to distribute out funding to the different organs. And then it goes to those DAOs. So this is us coming up with an alternative to nation state budgeting. I'm complaining about these fighter jets, and I have no say in how much money we're spending on warfare every year. But if the people of the US were able to actually vote on a budget for collective funding, I highly doubt we'd spend so much money on warfare. We'd probably spend more money on, education and exploration and science and all the stuff we need to fund. So this is what we've done, is we actually allow the citizens to choose which organizations are part of the commons. And all these organizations are using the DAO tool as well. So this is kind of where Hypha comes in. Hypha is one of the organizations in the Seeds Commons. We focus on building tooling. So that's the boundary that Hypha found, is we said, look, we don't have the capacity for storytelling and movement building and welcoming people in and all this other stuff. Like, all we can do is let's focus on building tools. So Hypha said our organ is tool building, right? So that's kind of where Hypha fits into Seeds. It's one organization in there, but then Hypha is also building tools for a whole lot of other organizations. And we can take what we've done for Seeds and help other ecosystems do the same thing. They're like, well, we want to launch a new currency and a new economic system too. Like, Hypha can help launch new economic systems and, coordination systems for different groups of people.
So in terms of, okay, so I got something here about the groups of people. So like I mentioned at the very, very beginning of this, I was watching a couple of your YouTube videos, and one of them is Regen Civics YouTube videos. So I'm going to read a little blurb here, and then I'm going to get you to talk about it, because I think this is super interesting. A few of us on this call, Josh left, but, looking for ways to start a new society of sorts, like communes, and just new ways to collect and live our lives. So it says here, Regen Civics Incubator is an alliance of organizations helping projects across our Earth launch new villages, businesses, organizations, and economic systems to co-create a regenerative culture. We open source everything. All sessions, tools, templates, and resources are publicly available as to best assist humanity's transition into regenerative structures so that all can equally benefit. We're in the process of selecting 12 diverse regenerative, I hate that word, projects from eco-villages and municipalities to local food systems and more to demonstrate how we can bring together a series of transformative technologies, tools, and systems to create regenerative civilizations to address humanity's converging crisis and provide an alternative to the dominant story today of civilization in decline.
When you read that out loud, that sounds like a mouthful.
It is. So this is but it's amazing. I mean, there's so much there. It's awesome. And this is the site that I think is tied to that. And I like the freedom to move across Earth, the freedom to disobey. Love that one. And the freedom to negotiate unique social relationships.
Yeah, so actually staying on that a little bit, I highly recommend everyone go read David Graeber's and David Wilson's latest book. They're both anthropologists, archaeologists, and they go back and they tell the story of humanity that we kind of forgot about. When we look back at humanity now, we kind of look at who was the biggest mafia guy and built the biggest pyramid and the biggest war, and we kind of focus on the mafia actors of history. But then we have like 500-year periods of relative peace where we're like, nothing happened. Let's just call them the Dark Ages. But they actually go back and look at some of these, calm periods and what social systems might have existed and what did they do and how they organized, and kind of tells a different story of different ways of setting up civilization. And I love that because it, sets the stage to be like, we can do better. And that's what Regen Civics is all about, is like, great, we need to experiment with that. You need to get really practical about building different types of social systems and help people know that this is possible. So the Regen Civics is an alliance of organizations. Actually, I'll share my screen again because why not?
Rieki, what was the name of that book? David who?
The Dawn of Everything, if you type that in. A New History of Humanity. So where does Regen Civics fit into the whole story? Is it's playing the ecological and social regeneration organ of our new economic system. So it's really focusing on the ground, practical. We're taking these tools, we're doing beautiful things in the world. It's tangible and real, right? And then let me take you there too then. So right now you can click here to step 5 and actually see all the different organizations that are part of this alliance right now. A lot of them have already filled out their profiles. But then what we're doing is we're helping projects and a diversity of them. We started off as Regen Villages because we're going to just focus on villages and new ways of living. But very quickly we changed it to Regen Civics because we're also working with municipalities, 10,000 hectare CBD production that want to give more voice to the people and the farmers and be more equitable in how they distribute value, etc. So we're like, actually, it's more expansive than just villages. It's all sorts of projects and new businesses and new structures for regeneration. So localizing our food systems, figuring out new ways of living and learning and collaborating together, etc. And you can see some of the projects were being proposed right here. We're going to have a hard time narrowing it down to 12, but each year we're going to choose 12 projects to focus on and crowd pool together. So when we come out there and say, hey, we're doing all of this epic stuff, we're crowd pooling, like come fund us, come join us. Instead of every project putting all the time and energy into doing that themselves, we do it with all 12. And then people show up, and the 12 are geographically diverse, so people all across the world can participate. And there's one in their, kind of bioregion or regional area that they can probably participate in, doing a whole bunch of different things. And then we're going to open source the whole process. So, Starseed Village is a village in Guatemala, I think. And they've got some land and they're doing some stuff, a living lab here. It's a new education center. So it's kind of like the universities of the future. And Nix is like a really high-end, beautiful place in Bali, and it's been doing like co-working and co-living for a while, etc. So there's a whole bunch of different things that we're wanting to showcase and then give these tools to. And then open source everything. So when people are like, yep, I'm inspired by this, like I want to do this too, we literally walk people through a step-by-step process of like, hey, how do you find out what you actually want to do? We have allies for that to help people dream up what 2030 civilizations look like where they actually want to go and create a plan that matters. And then start with that, and be able to cultivate that message. So we need to learn how to do that. And then finding their project. There's a bunch of allies helping people take failed hotels and retreats and, rural abandoned villages and all this stuff that we can convert into new types of villages and projects in the world, right? And then the do's, this is where the coordination technology comes in. So allies that help them come out coordinating differently. And actually what you see here is let's map things that matter in our community more effectively. So you probably can't tell, but the right one is the donut economic model where it has like social foundations and ecological ceilings. And it's showing how we live in harmony. We can't pollute and degrade our land too much. But if we can map this and start bringing this into the DAO, then seeds, what we plan to do is actually reward villages based on how regenerative they are. So that as an economic system, so if we go back to how do we spend that $10 billion if we're the size of Bitcoin, we say part of that money is going to go out to villages based on how regenerative they are. Let's create a game that says be more regenerative as a community, and we're going to pay you more money. And then we start a positive feedback loop. The more regenerative you are, the more money you get, which means the more regenerative you can be, positive feedback loop towards regeneration, right? And we can start having villages map that. And then on the left is more of a meta-integral system, looking at all 10 forms of capital and saying, are we growing all of our capital? Cultural capital, spiritual capital, along with natural, financial, etc. So there's different maps in what we find meaningful as a community we can start using. And we can do really interesting things because then as a community, we say we have resources, but we are looking and we're seeing like hunger is a serious problem. So why don't we direct some of our money towards solving our hunger problem in our community? Because we're mapping that and then we can start improving it. And then if we start doing that, of course, now we're going to get paid by, seeds and other ecosystems that want to support this to start, funding that as well. And this is the story we're going to go to institutions with, and we can partner with the whole EOSI ecosystem, is we can go to institutions that want to fund social change, billions and trillions of dollars, and they want to do it effectively. And we can say, look, we've created an alternative economic system that more effectively distributes value right towards the people who are doing regeneration on the ground and things that matter. And we can tell that story and they'll be like, oh, cool, I want to fund that. Well, cool. Well, you can fund it just by buying seeds. Those seeds go into the commons, which then goes to all these projects for funding, and it starts this new type of economic system. So the story we can tell then to funders that want to invest in change is we can say you can invest into a whole different type of civilization that's backed by thousands of projects and tens of thousands, if not millions of people. There's already 10,000 people in seeds. And that's way more risk tolerant, which is what they're looking for, than trying to invest in individual startups that have a high failure rate. Because you can imagine if we're operating as a whole ecosystem, if any one DAO fails, they could just be absorbed into the other DAOs of the ecosystem. Everything they built was open source, and we're only funding them because we thought what they were doing was important anyway. So we get rid of the concept of failure. We learned from them, we got new tooling, we got something out of that DAO, or else we wouldn't have been funding it. And if that particular experiment failed, then they just get absorbed into the whole, so we have less turnover. So we can actually create way more efficient ecosystems that can direct some of this money more effectively towards the systems change we're looking towards. And what the Regen Civics is doing is it's kind of creating a year pattern. This is the last thing I'll leave you with. Here's our current roadmap. Is we're still forming ourselves. So all the allies are coming together, which there's a whole bunch of, but kind of just looks like this. Is every member org sends some representatives to the alliance itself, and that's kind of how the alliance is structured. The key is that we're trying to do coordination without taking too much of people's time. So how do we, with 1 to 3 hours a week max at the beginning and like 1 week a quarter max going forward, can we coordinate across all of our organizations? Because we know everyone's busy. But then let's, do a lot of things together, shared fundraising, etc. But what this looks like is the seasons are what we're running with. So spring is when we're doing all the crowd pulling. When we're doing the storytelling, we're on our computers, we're a lot of hype. We're all working together at the same time to tell the story and get a lot of activity and energy behind it. And we're crowd pulling the projects. And then summer is when we actually go out there to the projects and we build them. So summer's all about region civics festivals. Like we're together, we're in person, we're in the summer, like we're planting trees and forests, hands in the ground, setting up gardens, building villages, whatever the projects are. We're on the ground doing the work that needs to happen and having fun. And this is really important. Getting off the computers. We need to build that into our culture where we spend time offline for our own mental health, our physical health, and everything else in between. And then fall is when we slow down and actually spend time with our villages, maybe your own business if you need that, spend time with your family, your own well-being, and then we reflect. So this is when we're actually doing sense making. So as a community, we're kind of coming together and saying, all right, how did spring and summer go? Was our crowdfunding effective? Do we need to tell the story differently? How is our governance systems? Are they working well? We're having time to dialogue and think deeply about this. And then winter is when we start doing decisions. So in one season, we do all of our governance. So rather than trying to do governance all the time, that's not a healthy pattern. We don't have time for it. People are burning out. Way too many people across this ecosystem are burning out from way too much complexity and trying to do everything at once. So the seasons model is about actually focusing our efforts into particular categories. So anyway, we do decision-making after we've had time to actually reflect and research and think deeply. So we're not just reactively running in circles. Then we come together, we make decisions, we create new organization structures, learning passed on the previous experiments. We design those new structures so that spring is a new season. We bring in 12 new projects within new structures that we've learned from, and we keep the cycle going. So it's kind of a yearly pattern that we plan to mimic in the northern and southern hemisphere so that they're kind of mirroring each other. And start going year round, bringing in more projects, more allies, and see if we can't start a flywheel towards really funding and starting a movement towards systems change. But most importantly, we're experimenting. So the seasons model, we're going to run through it and then we're going to iterate. So in the winter time, we're actually going to look back and say, how is the seasons model? How do we improve this model? And then start the process towards change is you set goals and then you go about achieving those goals. All we did is we said, we need to build a new civilization. It's the most audacious goal we could have set, but we set it. And then we started setting achievable goals to help us get there. Instead of saying that seems impossible, let's not even attempt it, which is what we've been doing the last decades. We say, nope, it's audacious. We have to do it. Let's see about how to go about doing that. And that's just what we've been doing for 5 years. And that's kind of where you guys are plugging in. It's a whole lot of time spent trying to do ridiculous stuff.
Hey, no, I think this it might be ridiculous as well, but it's also incredibly important and I think incredibly impactful as well. So bravo and kudos to you, Rieki, for spearheading something that really, if I think back 15 years looking at the different talk online for community development, applying systems thinking and building a better world, it looks like you actually have the tools and the systems and the processes and the commitment, the energy and the connections, the network to make a very, very, very big impact and contribution in that area.
Deeply appreciate that. However, I could just suggest, not me, we have the capacity. You're all part of this story too, and we're coming together to do it together. And I get way too much credit. My role is map maker. So my role is literally trying to figure out everything that's happening in the ecosystem and tell coherent stories. So I get the credit as if I'm doing this, but oh my God, I would be dead if I tried to accomplish what was happening. So I am just representing a whole movement of incredible humans who are actually doing all of this. My role is just, bringing it all together,
Spoken like an authentic leader.
Indeed.
Most definitely.
Well, and like I said earlier, vision's required before other people can follow. And so the vision here is strong and clearly the team's executed behind it.
Yeah. Is there somewhere, so for these projects, and so say people are watching this and they want to get involved, where's the best place for them to go? I mean, I guess there's a few things they could get involved with. Like there's more than one thing for them to look at. You've got like Hypha and Seeds itself, and then perhaps these projects from the what you've just been showing us now. Where's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, so this is another coordination tool that we've been working on to answer this question: is how can people who are showing up to this get involved? It's so complex, it's kind of overwhelming. So we have this model, and I'm sharing with you now. We call it Roundtable. So this is what I'm suggesting everyone can do. The first time we're running through this model is actually the upcoming March solstice, equinox rather, because that's when we do our seasons. Is every solstice and equinox. We have this 7-day roundtable period. So what it looks like is the first day is all the organizations. So I was kind of explaining that we pick organizations each season that runs the whole ecosystem. So all the DAOs that were part of that last season, they each send 2 reps to 1, talk about what they did, and then 2, talk about what they learned. So then day 1 is where you can 1, show up and learn about all the great things that are happening in the ecosystem. So we kind of ask everyone like, hey, if you time poor like all of us, just show up to the round tables, and that's the best place to kind of get a hold of what's happening real time, right? So day 1, we see what's happening. Day 2, the new organizations that want to take us the next season present on what they'd like to do. So all the organizations that have, want to move us forward, are sensing the next steps, are part of the next season or whatever, they present. Day 3 is then when we just talk about it. Lots of citizen assemblies, dialogues, breakout groups, thinking, discussing, understanding. Because day 4, then the seeds, all the citizens of Seeds, and we can do this for any ecosystem. I was actually proposing we were doing this with Telos. Maybe we do this as EOSIO as a whole, whatever. But all the token holders, stakeholders, whatever ecosystem is running this, then vote on which organizations. And we can use the same thing we use for block producer voting right now. So just repurpose those tools to vote for which organizations are going to be part of the committee going forward. And then what they do is they send 2 representatives for each one of the organizations that are voted in to come together to form the council. The council has a very small goal. It's not this new form of world governance or anything like that. They have one goal, and that's to establish a budget, start the new season. So they come together, they have the best understanding of what their organization needs, what the whole ecosystem needs. Like if you're bringing the people together that are doing the work and they pick the 2 people they think to best represent them, that group is going to have the best understanding and the smallest group possible to actually achieve this, to set a budget for the ecosystem going forward. And then that's kind of how you decentralize the governance of setting a budget. So this is what we're running with now. And what I'd suggest is that people just show up, because day 2 is when you're going to hear about all the new organizations. And part of them presenting is they say, these are the roles we need to accomplish what we're doing. These are the people we're looking for. Maybe we need capital, whatever it is. They get to present what they need and what they're wanting to do. So everyone who's like, yes, we love this movement, we want to get involved, then show up to day 2 and see what the groups have to offer.
So this is in like 10 days or so?
This is coming up soon. And this is the first time we've run it. So it might be a little bit clunky. We'll see. We'll probably learn a whole lot, but show up anyway, participate in this kind of, shift.
Can you post or shoot a link to me afterwards, Rieki, and I'll throw it in the description video. Yeah,
I'm actually not part of the committee creating the comment or creating the roundtable, so I'll get the links from them if they even have it right now. I think they do. They've been preparing it, and then I'll send it to you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it seems. I mean, there's so much here, right? It's you've got 4 or 5 years of history of doing this and evolving to where you are now. You've got the new Hypha tool coming out, so individuals and groups can create their own DAOs, and then you've got this other collective sort of thing happening. That's a whole other, many plates of spinning.
Yeah, I'll share with you one thing to help give you guys actually back to sharing the screen. This is our Seeds dashboard. It's just a real quick screenshot of what we've been doing. So this is updating real time. So there's 10,500 people that have been given an invite. So we all know EOSIO, you have to stake resources to have an account. So everyone who's part of Seeds actually had to pay and give a gift to someone else to be there. So instead of the inverse where you pay people to be part of your community, we actually had it so you have to pay to have people join. So we had 10,000 people do that. 477 have gone through the process of becoming a citizen. It's kind of extensive, and it's there to help see that the people who are making decisions are actually committed to the ecosystem. And of that 417, we've been doing decisions for 4 years or 3 years on chain. I forget how long. We have 448 businesses, and we've passed 120 something on-chain proposals. So we've had more that have failed, but these are how many proposals we've made as a Seeds DAO over the years. So these are all the seed things that we funded. So you can see where all those seeds flowed. So a whole bunch to education that's important in the early days. Land care and local food got a bunch too. Reforestation, very small amounts like water, healthcare, cleaning up, social equity. So we're actually looking at the things that a regenerative economic system needs to fund and how we're funding those things, where money's going. So it's kind of a quick snapshot of seeds in a nutshell. Yeah, and it's been fun.
Yeah, and that's joinseeds.earth.
Yeah, if you go there, there's a whole bunch of different links. All right. I guess since no one knows anything, let me just one more time. Yeah, if you come to here, this is the home for everything. If you click up here, you can go to the knowledge base, which is where I was showing you before. There's a ton there. It's kind of everything. If you can actually read through the knowledge base, you have a full understanding of everything. There's a forum. So this is kind of our slow governance, where Discord, it's kind of whacking all over the place. This is one of the slower places we're making decisions. But we also have the Seeds Passport and a forum here. And this is all on-chain. So what's cool is we're going to be using this forum to distribute reputation, which then helps see how much voice you have to people who are participating in the discussion. So it's rewarding you for bringing your wisdom and knowledge and doing that. So a little bit like Steam It there. But let's go back to the website. There's a bunch of integrations. So if you want to accept seeds, invite your community in or any of that stuff, there's a bunch of different plugins you can add to your website. So we've made this process really simple as well. Beautiful. Yeah, that's basically it. And then if you come, actually, let me show you this. So the dashboard was there if you wanted to see that, but then the knowledge base. So this is kind of everything. So you can come down here and you can see all the foundations, our constitution. We spent 1.5 years and hundreds of people and tens of thousands of comments, forming a shared constitution. And it's incredible. I highly recommend reading that. It's a beautiful document. The guide goes over the governance and economics. It's a 170 document of all the protocols that govern a new economic system. And how we've designed it is everyone has its own little setting. So that, for example, inflation could be set to 0, which means we have a stable currency, but that 0 is a setting. So an on-chain proposal can come up to say, change inflation setting from 0 to 1. And if it passes, that setting automatically updates. So you can have a way of adjusting the economic parameters across all the settings, which are extensive, and continually evolve and redesign the system without having to build any new code or having any humans interact with it. Now, of course, if we want to add entirely new features, we have a multi-sig process for doing that. But anyway, then we have the different currencies, all the foundations, everything's kind of here. Then you can see the allies. So there's a couple hundred organizations that have pledged to be part of the Renaissance and bringing their organizations, and you can see who they are here. The Region Civics was here, and that's 30 plus organizations. Actually, I think it's like 40 plus now. And way too many projects. We've had like maybe 50 different apply, and we need to narrow it down to 12. So we already have a lot, and there's incredible projects in there. But anyway, and then this is where all those templates and strategies and different stuff to help DAOs along their way are. So when you're thinking of roles in your community, come here and check out the role templates. Add these templates. So if you're figuring out stuff in your community that's working, please contribute to this knowledge base too. And this is all open created as well. You can come here and learn how to contribute by clicking contributing to the knowledge base. You can get access to be an editor and make suggestions here. So this is kind of like our Wikipedia. We're tracking the progress and learning together. You can learn about the Seeds financial system here, and you can look at all the tools we've built here. So if you click here, you see all the different apps that have been built that are integrated with Seeds and Hypha and Telos and all this stuff. This helps explain, the Seeds guide I was telling you about, where we have all these different tokens and primitives for building new economic and governance systems. So you can kind of learn about all those tools here and how they work. You can see like our simulator, for example, we built to simulate the Seeds economy, different economic protocols here. So all these different tools for building new types of economic systems like gratitude and rainbow seeds and, flat money and all that fun stuff. Sense making tools, decision, etc. So there's a whole bunch of different tools that we've built and contributed, designed as an ecosystem over the years.
Yeah.
Last kind of piece, because again, this is a lot, but it's, if we're talking about building a new economic system, it's not a small feat. 7 is where you actually come down and see the Seeds Commons, learn about how that works, and then see the different Commons organizations. We literally just finished putting this document together, so only Hypha's updated their DAO so far. Because all of these groups, they all created their own websites and their own knowledge bases, and it's kind of hard to get them all to use one. But anyway, so you can see the different organizations here, and in the future, you'll be able to click here, and then you'll learn how you can contribute to them. So one, what they're up to, what are they working on, and then the other thing is how to join them. So that anyone who wants to participate here, they can come see what the different commons organizations are, what they're up to, and then how you can join them and participate. So then this knowledge base is kind of the one place to go to learn about everything that's happening and get involved and all that stuff. But it's extensive, and that's where it puts a lot of people off. My last comment there before I shut up is that that's kind of it's a good filter in my opinion right now, because we're building the DNA of a new social system, a new civilization. And the people who are participating and actually stick around through all that complexity, they're incredible humans that actually understand how the whole system works. They have a penchant for like enjoying complexity system, theories and all of this incredible stuff we're doing. So it's kind of been almost a benefit that it's so complex that most people shy away from it, because the people that have stuck around have been the exact people we want to be around when we're doing decentralized governance to evolve a system. So it's kind of when you look at like the theory of how ecosystems evolve, a lot of people are just like, oh, we want a lot of people all at once. But then when you see the projects that have done that, where just a ton of people who come in because they all got a token and all they care about is token price, then it burns the core team out, because they're spending all their time trying to justify why the price went down or up today or whatever. And then their whole focus is on price swings and yelling with community, and it's just noise. And that's really difficult to filter through the system, and you see all these DAOs collapsing. So if we rethink our models to say, no, what we're actually looking for is signal and people who care, that we have to redesign how we grow and what that looks like, and then what success looks like. So that's why I showed the dashboard, is we're looking at a wider range of what we're accomplishing, rather than just token price being the only indicator that we care about. We say, no, impact in the world isn't token price. Impact in the world is the knowledge we're building, the tools we're building, the impact on the ground that we're having, the dialogue that's happening, the wisdom that's coming together, the ideas that are forming. Like, so much value is being generated that we don't track in our typical communities. So that's something else that Hypha is trying to do, is rethink the dashboard and what's important for your community and what we're working towards, and then have different ways of achieving that together. So anyway, huge vision, all that. I'll stop now.
And Seeds has, and I'm looking at the website here, and you've got Android app, Apple, iOS, and Android both there.
Two apps for both the passport and a wallet. So, that was kind of fun, but a little redundancy there. However, they're completely different apps now at this point, and I recommend both. The wallet has social key recovery, so you're able to go in there and actually assign key guardians to recover your keys should you lose them. We thought that was a critical piece, and we walked through doing the UI. It's really beautiful. You can delegate your vote, you can participate in proposals, and there's a whole bunch of different tokens that you can hold too.
Is that one based on Telos?
Yes. Yeah.
That's Telos. Okay.
Everything we have right now is only operating on Telos. We haven't done any integrations to other chains, and that's what we're talking to other chains now, and why we're having a lot of these dialogues is because we're exploring that.
Okay. Well, this has been great. I don't know if any kind of closing remarks here. We're over an hour and a half, which is excellent. Really appreciate your time spending with us here, going through all this. I know for yourself, we've got you're on Twitter at Rieki Corden, and also Hypha DHO should be followed. And then people need to, and I'll put all these in the description afterwards. Hypha.earth and joyseeds.earth are all great places to go to follow and learn more. Go ahead, Gav.
Yeah. I know we're over time, so maybe just a comment rather than a question, or just an open idea. Joshua Seymour, who dropped off the call just before, and I have spent a bit of time talking about creating a software that includes local community bylaws, cities. We focused the conversation on the US, which I don't really know much about. But the idea was that there could be two columns, one that shows the existing current bylaws of the local town, the city, and then another column that allows a commenting and a conversation about each of the clauses in the bylaws, and then an editing process so that local community or town could end up having its own rewritten version that then, because it's localized in the town, could be brought up in town hall meetings with actual political governors of the community to help the community influence the kind of bylaws that exist for their local town or community. So that was an idea we had. We did a bit of diagramming, curious how that idea can actually start to, like, if it's useful for influencing what actually happens in towns, because you can build a big new system, but at some point it has to start to meet the majority of people, the mass market. So maybe some kind of juxtaposition and comparison and commenting and editing process might actually be a useful tool for the future. So that's my final closing comment.
Yeah, super quick response. Yes, we've talked about doing that. We're working with municipalities in both Costa Rica and Liechtenstein to do this. So if I'm sharing the screen now, I'll actually show you where it would show up. And we're wanting to do that in seeds. We haven't got there yet, where you can update the Constitution, kind of like a Google Doc, where you can highlight an area, say, make a suggestion, and then that goes up for a proposal. If it passes, it just changes. We're wanting to get to that point, but anyway, so we'd love to work with you to build that tool, but this could be a municipality. And then the municipality has like food, healthcare, housing, and the different things that they have for their budget, right? Then they can have different proposals that come up for each one of those. They can have all this or they don't, or the policies. This is what you're talking about. So This is where all the policies of the town can be, click on that, and they can have the dialogue here and discussing it. They can vote on it. They can see what policy changes they want to make. Then everything can be stored on chain here. They can create their own new constitution to then propose to the town hall. So yeah, I mean, we're building it for that purpose too. And we're talking with, and they're not even that progressive too. Governors just realize that it's in their own self-serving interest to not take all the blame, So there's a lot of, municipalities that are interested in adopting newer technologies and not just being left behind. I was actually invited to, my mom was working at the US Capitol and she was talking to someone putting up crypto proposals there, and he wants me to go and talk to them about them adopting this tool in Salt Lake County, because they're like, yeah, it's an interesting idea, come present it to us. So a lot of like local municipalities are interested in this, and they could even use it to, be better at tax collection and have every transaction pay taxes directly and whatever. There's a million ways these tools can be used. And that's kind of the Trojan horse way, because we could sell it till that way, don't tell them. But then once the community gets into self-governing, direct democracy systems, then it'll be hard to, manipulate people as well. So you can sell it to them that, hey, it's easier to collect taxes. And again, honestly, most local communities, they're not evil people. Like the people running local governance, they're incredible people most of the time, and they really care about their communities. So if we present this as a tool that really helps them, like they're sold. Federal level, government is a little bit different because they're career politicians. What we're asking them to do is to make themselves obsolete, and that's scary. But local councils, a lot of them, they already have other jobs. They're not even really getting paid that much to do local politics anyway, So it's actually a lot easier for them, because it's like, oh, we can do good in the world, help our community, and this could be beneficial. Great. So yes, it's definitely something we're looking at, is to not be too radical where we're saying, take down and burn the old system. What we're saying is we need to regenerate. This works for all of us. Let's try to work together as best as we can. And here's tools that just help us do it better. Less fraud, more transparency, more direct democracy, more freedom. It's all the values that align the left and the right. You can come to both of them, and it works with all of them. It's across the board. It's just, this gives us more freedom, more transparency. If you want to be socialist, great. Build your socialist system. If you want a libertarian future, and that's what you care about, great. Build your libertarian DAO, and then let the people and the right to exit and move decide what systems really work. That's the capitalistic mentality that crosses both boundaries. Let's build communist systems and bring it to the free market, Cool. That's the blend that we actually go through. We've got to unify all of this and give more freedom for people to design new types of social systems. And that's really what we're coming out here to say. And again, I think that's the storytelling that aligns all sides and helps make this movement more tangible and less about just Ponzi schemes and fraud and nonsense. Well, I'm divorced now. Sorry. I'm going to be honest. I had a coffee, and I don't generally drink coffee, so I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be exercising." I think I've been like very talkative because
Perfect.
Extra caffeine.
No, it's been great. This has been highly educational. I am sure a lot of people are gonna get a lot out of this video, and definitely we'll have a lot, all the links in the description below, so people can click around and follow where you were leading us. And really hope this does bring people together and change the path that we're collectively on. All right.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rieki. Good day.
You guys